Hey guys, Spirit of the Law here. I have some access to an early preview of the upcoming Last Chieftains DLC coming out next Tuesday. And while there's been a trickle of info about the civilizations and unique units up to this point, we can finally take a good look at things in a bit more detail and answer a lot of questions. In this video, we're going to do a condensed summary of all 3 new civilizations, including a lot of specifics about units and techs. We'll start with the Champi, which is a unit that replaces the Militia Line and Eagle Warrior for Incas in the new civs. Like we've been told, we can see it's going to be good against archers thanks to speed and pierce armor, a lot like the Eagle Line, and even has some anti-siege bonus it borrows from those as well. That said, it's not shock infantry, so it doesn't take all the Eagle's extra bonus damage, while also has a bit of bonus damage against shock infantry and buildings, so in that respect, it shows some Militia Line influence. It then costs 45 food and 25 gold, very similar to the 50 food and 20 gold of the Swordsman line, and has reasonably cheap upgrade costs until you get to the Imperial Age one. In a quick test to get a rough sense, they're noticeably worse than the Militia Line in melee, losing head-to-head for instance, though I might feel okay going Champi against a men-at-arms opening just because you can outmaneuver them, and the longsword in particular is actually pretty close to even as you can see. That mobility and pierce armor combo is really a big deal against archers, and that's where it's going to feel a lot like an Eagle Warrior without some of that unit's other downsides, but also without their bonus against cavalry. Keep in mind they have a 30-second creation time for the first 2 levels in Dark and Feudal Age, dropping to 21 seconds once you get the Champi Warrior upgrade in Castle Age, so the production rate is going to limit their early damage as much as anything I suspect. Obviously, he's your starting scout as well, and seems to have the same speed and line of sight as an Eagle Scout, so no real advantage or disadvantage that jumps out to me there. The next general thing to know about these new civs is their settlement building, which is a universal drop-off building replacing all camps in the mill, plus it's also a house. I speculated this might be 150 wood, but it turns out it's just 125, so you're paying for a regular camp plus house without any extra cost. I know it was a concern a few people had, but it turns out just one settlement fulfills the 2 Dark Age building requirement when aging up, as I guess it counts as a lumber camp plus a mill, if you want to think of it that way. Here I can advance with just one built on a wood line, whereas for a regular civilization with 1 lumber camp, they'd have to build a second Dark Age building to advance, and as another intangible upside, it's also very aesthetically pleasing and efficient for farms. The third big thing to know about these civs is the overhaul coming to Slingers, which are very different now, as they're a trash unit. Previously, they cost 30 food and 40 gold in Castle Age, but now cost 70 food and just 10 wood. They're a little different stats-wise now as well, with lower HP, and their anti-infantry bonus has dropped from plus 10 to plus 4, but now have a new plus 4 against monks and plus 3 bonus against siege units. Keep in mind none of these 3 new civs nor the Incas have Hussar, so they still only have 3 trash units in total. It's just they have the anti-archer, anti-cavalry, and anti-infantry / sort of anti-siege choices. Suddenly, a lot of the bonuses to improve Slingers are making a bit more sense, as it's now essentially a food unit, and we'll see a lot more of it. So that's the shared units and building, but now let's get into the civilizations and answer some of the looming questions about unique units and techs. We'll start with the Tupi, who open with 25 extra of each resource to start the game. Their second bonus is they can put 5 villagers inside each of their settlements or camps, which don't fire arrows or anything like that, but just keep them safe, a bit like houses for Khmer. The next bonus is that their units return 15% of their cost when defeated or you delete them. Either way, you get the resources back. Your archery range and blacksmith upgrades then cost half as much food, saving 313 food on the way to Arbalester, 230 for Halberdier, and 438 for Champion total. From their bonuses and tech tree, they seem to be pretty flexible in terms of army compositions, combining some sort of archery range and infantry unit, with the Champi and Slinger as one possibility, and both of those units have a unique tech to speed up their attack rate by 25%. In terms of unique units, the first is the Blackwood Archer at the castle. These have very low attack and cost 35 wood and 45 gold, actually 10 wood more than a typical crossbow, but in this case that gets you 2 units, costing just 1 pop space combined and being made in a very quick 14 seconds. Stats-wise compared to a crossbow, the roughly half HP really jumps out, and the concept here is very simple to understand, as you just want to overwhelm your opponent. The in-game description says they're good in high numbers, but die at close range. I think somewhat predictably, they beat half their numbers of crossbows pretty convincingly, which I think makes sense, as they have roughly double the archer's combined attack power, and if you think about it, actually have more HP in total at the start of the fight. The flip side is if they run into mangonels, scorpions, or any sort of defensive building, then they'll just completely melt. In Imperial Age, the elite version then doesn't gain any more attack other than bracer and chemistry, but a unique tech can then add in poison damage, which seems to be a steady drip of 3 extra damage per shot and does appear to stack. The UI is a little tricky to interpret, as it gives the stacking poison damage as damage per minute, while it only lasts for a few seconds and constantly updates as new poison is added and old poison is removed over time. The fact that Gulam and Haskaro here go from 70 to just 20 shots highlights how dangerous this upgrade is, albeit this might exaggerate it a bit, as it has less time to work when units are being focus fired. The archer line and defensive buildings also benefit from this tech as well, with the Arbalester actually getting +5 extra damage from this instead of the Blackwood archers +3. Tupi are lacking thumb ring, but even so, their Arbalesters went through this group of paladins 57% faster than a generic civ with thumb ring's extra fire rate. It's too early to make balanced judgments, but it seems hard to go wrong in the late game with Blackwood archers or just Arbalesters as 2P. The other unique unit is the Ibera Pema warrior from the barracks. So far, 2P lack tankiness in their melee units, as just something to put in front of your archers, and that's where this guy comes in. He's 30 food and 60 gold, so not cheap by infantry standards, but already in Castle Age has a very solid 80 HP, plus an area attack. Here we can see that in action, and unlike your typical area damage that affects all units around him, it's basically full damage to the targeted unit and what's immediately behind it. Again, it's easy to understand this unit's role, clearing out generic enemy melee units for a price, which is a role your Halberdier and Champi lines are unable to fill, and is arguably the only unit this civ has that gives some durability in melee. So that's the 2P, as an archer and infantry combined arms civilization. Next, let's look at the Mapuche, who are a cavalry and counter unit civ. Their bonuses are extra food from foragers as their early eco boost, their settlements train spears and skirmishers, basically giving you multiple free production buildings throughout the game. Their infantry, slingers, and skirmishers have more HP, their 2 mounted units generate gold from kills, and they reveal enemy castles on the map, which doesn't work as an advance warning of castle drops, by the way. Basically, they just appear out of the fog when completed, stay highlighted for a few seconds, and then fade to an explored part of the map, so you don't have active sight on what they're producing. Moving on to their unique units, the first is the Bolus Rider at the archery range. This is a lot like a cavalry archer, with a comparable wood and gold cost and similar HP, attack, and range, though bonus damage takes it in a bit different direction. Instead of a bonus against spears, these have +2 bonus against cavalry and camels, which will help a bit against the things that they can't hit and run. Really though, this is a hit and run unit at heart, with an occasional charge attack that lowers its target speed by 15% for a few seconds. It wears off long before the recharge is done, so it's not like they're constantly slowed, but still seems annoying to fight against. They also have 90% accuracy, so it feels like they'll do a lot of the same things as cavalry archers, with a couple of extra advantages. Mapuche also have a very nice unique tech in Castle Age as well, giving a few units some pass-through damage, doing what seems to be 30% of their usual damage to units immediately behind their target. You can get a general sense of its reach here, and notice it's quite sensitive to the angle of projectiles, such that slingers get a lot more reach than the other two here. Extra damage on your cavalry archer replacement and your ranged trash units is kinda great, and their other unique tech reduces the cost of your team's unique units, plus your Bolus Riders by 15%. Considering all unique units are balanced using their cost within the context of their civilization's late game economy, that has me a little nervous there's some unforeseen interactions here. Then again, maybe a trash unit focus from Mapuche is so awful in team games that this becomes their main contribution to the team. We'll see how things play out, and this sort of thing is very difficult to predict. The Mapuche's other unique unit at the castle is then the Kona, which, like most cavalry, have decent HP, then appearing to give up some attack and melee armor for more pierce armor, making it naturally suited to countering archers and maybe giving some pop efficiency against infantry. It's 65 food and 40 gold, so not crazy expensive in the late game, and gives you a nice melee complement to Bolus Riders. Notice there's no armor upgrade here in Castle Age, as the civilization lacks cavalry armor upgrades and the stable, so no bloodlines or husbandry to pick up either, and the only thing to grab is in fact the blacksmith attack upgrades. Their special ability then somewhat addresses their low attack by increasing their damage against injured units, which you can directly read from the attack value. It temporarily adjusts +1 attack for every 15% of the target's HP that's lost, up to +6 damage once it's below 10% health. You're always kind of incentivized to finish off damage units already, so I don't know how you'd intentionally take advantage of this, but it does mean it'll often end up hitting harder than its stats imply over time. So that's the Mapuche, which kind of take you in two different directions. The trash counter unit path, where you can mass those easily from settlements and get more HP and pass through damage, while the other direction is those two mounted units, which unfortunately both cost gold, so it might end up being a little tricky to pair those, as natural as that might seem at first. It's probably too early to predict, but I'm expecting some trash opening shenanigans with this civ, and then either Bolus Rider spam in the mid-game or a Kona and Skirmisher or Slinger pairing to combine some mobility with DPS. The last civ in the DLC is the Muisca, who have an archer and monk focus, though in some ways they're fairly similar to Tupi by encouraging a combo of archery range and barracks units, with the monastery thrown in as something extra. Their first bonus is advancing to the next age costs half the usual gold, which actually saves 500 gold by Imperial Age, and is right up there with the best gold bonuses in the game. I'm not even sure Turk's faster gold miners get an extra 500 gold by Imperial, and certainly not consistently. Their next bonus is their settlements cost 25% less, so just 94 wood, for remember a universal camp plus a house, and they also heal nearby units 1 HP every 4 seconds when those are within 3 tiles. That's faster than Pole's passive healing in Feudal, but only applies to units directly around their settlements. Their next bonus is their champion archery range units get progressively more melee armor, maybe making their crossbows a little better against knights for instance. Though keep in mind their archers lack the final armor, so they're down 2 pierce armor late, and the Champi lack the final attack upgrade, so there are some counterbalances here. Their monks then regenerate faith 50% faster, so in about 40 seconds to recharge instead of the usual roughly 1 minute. And finally, caravan and guilds are free, plus your natural gold sources last 15% longer as a team bonus, so you get a lot of gold value in the late game between better sell prices and the longer lasting gold mines. The unique techs then make your archer line and Champi move 15% faster, plus the slingers get an extra range and train faster and Imperial Age with the second tech. Altogether, the crossbow line seems like a very solid game plan, giving you cheaper castle and Imperial Age advances, free melee armor, plus the cheaper settlements as a wood bonus, that when combined with the fact you need fewer settlements from doubling up on resources, probably altogether ends up being just as good as the Japanese camp discount. The faster archery line tech also seems very good and might sound broken, but still leaves them about 10% slower than plumed archers, so it's not necessarily unprecedented and is locked behind a castle. As for unique units, the first is made at the barracks and monastery called the Temple Guard. They're pretty expensive at 80 food and 45 gold, but have very high HP and almost the durability of a knight without bloodlines, with then higher attack, plus an extra bonus against cavalry. Despite being a monastery unit, they actually don't take anti-monk bonus damage from eagles or scouts, but they are shock infantry, so a lot of infantry will have a bonus against them, hence the description they're weak against the militia line. The fact it's made from the monastery suggests a use case in arena after fast castling, skipping a barracks entirely, but being able to make a couple of them to control relics and fight off scouts. Notice the Civ does like Halberdier, which I think is to try and encourage this unit in the late game, so it should be generally useful as a blocker against heavy cavalry or as a damage sponge against skirmishers. They also have a special effect of increasing their attack rate the longer they fight the same unit, going from 2 seconds to 1.2 seconds between each attack, which increases their DPS by about 2/3. The Muisca's other unique unit at the castle is then the Guecha Warrior, which at first glance is a bit of a weird one, as it's a skirmisher with bonus damage against archers, spears, and cavalry archers, plus a slower 3-second reload rate, but costs 50 wood and 60 gold, so it's not a trash unit, and they also have 2 less range in castle age than elite skirmishers. The upside is they have much higher attack, especially once you upgrade them in Imperial, and are also quite a bit faster. They then add in a quirky mechanic, where if a Guecha warrior dies, all the ones around it slowly regain 5 HP, which might not sound crazy, but means if 10 of them go down, in theory that could fully heal all the other ones around it. In practice, a lot of that is going to be wasted on full health units, plus it doesn't stack, so it'll never be as efficient as it sounds on paper. They're clearly still a good anti-archer unit, and their higher attack makes them much more versatile than your typical skirmisher, justifying the gold cost. It's a tricky unit to predict, as they still have minimum range, so in theory cavalry should handle them just fine, but the more of them you get, the more that group healing is going to kick in as a wildcard. So that's Muisca, with a good archer and Champi line, augmented with the Temple Guard against probably mostly cavalry, and the Guecha Warrior against mostly archers. With all 3 new civs covered, that concludes our 15-minute-ish rundown of the most important things to know about the upcoming civilizations. I'll be curious to see how Inca come out of all this as well, between the Slinger becoming a trash unit, the settlement as an implicit wood bonus going to the Inca as well, and the Champi replacing their eagle and militia lines. Probably to offset the settlement being better than regular camps, I noticed the Inca's food discount for their units was dropped by 5% for each age. Overall, the DLC seems solid, and I'm loving the new architecture set in particular. At this point, I would say my biggest concern isn't with any of the new civs, but simply the civilization selection screen that now goes one row farther than they can show at any one time. So I expect in 10 years we're going to be hearing from newer players who say they never even realized Vikings were in the game. That'll do it for this one though. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you next time.